Hi, I'm Isaac from Isaac Builds Things, and in this video we're checking out the DCF620 versus the DFR450X and why I'm switching from the Makita to the Dewalt. So I'm a carpenter here in New Zealand, and often my job includes building a house from start to finish or renovating a house, and both of those include installing the jib plasterboard onto the walls. These guns are awesome for installing that plasterboard, and I would highly recommend getting a collated screw gun so you can use it one-handed and not have to put singular screws in. It makes it so quick, and you can just pop in screws easy, quick, and efficiently. So one of the huge reasons for swapping for me is the cost of the front end. So the Makita front end costs $350, which is only $100 less than the whole gun put together, and the Dewalt costs only $180. So there's a huge difference in the cost of that front end assembly. You can grab this for 180 bucks or $350. And so for me, the cost of doing that on the Makita is literally basically worth buying a new gun, whereas the Dewalt is a lot more worth it to just replace that front end. So the Dewalt can extend up from 25mm to 57mm screws, and the Makita can only go 25 to 41mm screws. This is not a biggie because for 99% of my jobs, the biggest we go up to is 41, so the Makita is totally fine, but that is helpful for when you're doing some big firewalls where you need a couple of layers of jib. So another factor that I considered was the weight. So the Makita with the 5Ah battery is quite heavy compared to the Dewalt. So the Dewalt, even with the 5Ah, is a little bit lighter, but I have the PowerStack 1.7Ah batteries, and these things are so tiny and light, so when this is on your tool belt, it's a whole lot lighter. Another thing is the length. The Dewalt is a little bit longer, which is a negative of the Dewalt compared to the Makita, which is a bit more compact in a short, straight line. Another positive that I like on the Makita is these nice long belt clips that fit on pretty much any part of your tool belt. So when you compare that to the Dewalt belt clip, it's quite a thin slot and quite wide, so you need to put that on like a tape measure clip or a thin piece of leather. There's just less spots that are easy to hang it up without thinking. Another awesome and super handy feature is the rotating head on the Dewalt. So you can just click it into place, and if you put that on like 90 degrees, now I can go up close to a wall without hurting my knuckles. Whereas on the Makita, when I go really close to the wall, my knuckles are in there, and often you end up scraping your knuckles on the side of the wall. This is an awesome upgrade. The other thing is that the Dewalt has a quick release. So if you don't have your impact driver on you and you need to quickly tap in a screw a bit more or take it out, you can just pop the front end off really quick, just with a quick release, and then you have a normal drill. I don't like using that by choice, but it works. To get the Makita front end off, you need to undo these two finger screws, and then you can pop that off. And do the same thing, use it as a drill, but it's a whole lot harder to get it back on. It doesn't line up as good, and then when you get it back on, got to pop those screws back in, and you have to refeed your magazine because the magazine is not attached to the front end like it is on the Dewalt. So the Makita DFR450X was my first screw gun. I bought it brand new about 2 years ago, and so I've used it a decent amount but not a crazy amount, and the front end has started loosening up. There's a little bit of slop in the sliding mechanism. This means that when I'm awkwardly holding it above my head or to the side trying to do a ceiling or a wall, sometimes it can jam by sending the screw a little bit sideways into the metal on the front end, and then it will jam. Now this is very frustrating if you're holding a ceiling up, screwing it, and then you get a jam, and now you've got to fix the jam one-handed by putting it in between your legs, and it's crazy. That is really frustrating, getting a jam when you're in a tight spot and you're by yourself. So that is the main reason why I considered swapping. And then I talked to my mates and other people I knew who have used the Dewalt, and it's not as prone to the jam. And so when you get an awkward screw, it still forces it in. So that means that you have less jams and less tight spots where you're just going to get stuck. Another little point that's not super important but is a factor is this nice white rubber on the Makita is really nice on the nose, but it's prone to falling off. And most guns that I've seen that are a couple of years old, people have just lost them, and then they just have a not as nice metal front end. I've looked after that really well, but it is annoying because I have to keep an eye on it and make sure I'm pushing it back in and not losing that rubber. Whereas the Dewalt has a plastic front end, which isn't as nice and soft, but you just don't need to worry about it. So overall, these two guns, when they're new, they both work awesome, and I actually prefer the mechanism of the Makita when it's working really nice and smooth and buttery in a perfectly straight line, but the Dewalt, just for longevity and for those other bonuses that you get along with it, that's why I'm switching to the Dewalt gun. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. See you next time.